My name is Chris Robinson, but creatively, I'm known as Clear Living. It has a dual meaning. Of course, CLR are my initials. So it's like Christopher, for myself, it's Christopher L. Robinson Living, you know. But I was just like, all right, for other people just to say that, I'm like, okay, that means nothing to no one else but me. But so I was like, clear, that works. And so I'm like, all right, clear living. And then I was like, okay, well, that works for me because that's one of my goals. As a person who, suffers from some mental health issues and then also suffering from ADHD, for me to have things in line, in order, and in a simplistic fashion is in ways of what clear living is for me. So don't overcomplicate things. Live a clear existence. Like that being said, clear your path so you can see what's coming ahead. And so that's how I came up with the other part for clear living for other people when they say, like, okay, how can I relate to this? Versus they can't relate to being Christopher L. Robinson. A lot of my early life was very complicated. And so this part of my life, I want it simplistic. I want it clear. My background as an artist, I'm not formally trained. Like I've taken classes, throughout like elementary school, middle school, high school, and some of college, but no actual classes to get an art degree or anything like that. So a lot of it is self-taught or, watching YouTube or I remember back in the day as a kid, like watching people like Bob Ross and stuff like that. So learning techniques from those different sources. It's something that's always been with me as a kid. But of course, growing up and, going out into the real world and everything, I chose to put art on the back burner. But then later in life, I realized that art was something that I really needed. And that's what made me reconnect with art again. I moved to Wilmington in 2018. And so my transition here wasn't the best. By that, I mean, it was just more of a struggle of just trying to find my place, how I fit in, what can I contribute, all of that. And so that sent me on a therapy journey because it's like just trying to discover like what's going on, why am I feeling these things, I'm not connecting. And then from that, my therapist eventually down the road asked the question, what were you passionate about as a kid? I, then told her like art. I enjoy creating things, making things. And for the longest, like I would make things, but I would just keep them in my house. I wouldn't share them with anyone. So finally, she gave me that assignment to create something. And so that's when I created the first piece in the Flowers and Pearls collection. When I showed her that piece, she was just like, wow, like I didn't expect you to go all out like this. I just thought you was going to do something on some paper and say, hey, I completed the assignment. And so once I saw her wow in it, I was like, well, maybe I have something. And then I started showing other people and other people were wowed by it. So I was like, well, I have to do something with this. My art style is mixed media. I love finding things, like repurposing things, like upcycling. That's how I came along with the seashells. Actually, that happened after a therapy session too. Like it was a great session and I didn't want to come off that therapy high. And so that's when I went to the beach. And that's when I had walked along the beach like I had done before. And but this time things were different. I started to see the seashells differently and they started to like turn into flowers like before my eyes. And I was just like, okay, this is not supposed to be happening. Yeah, definitely my work is a combination of things that I collect, things that I find beauty in, that other people might not. So in the very beginning, this collection was something that just kind of happened. And it, like I said, it started with Tanishi, the fall, but then after that, I was just like, okay, well, I created fall. I have to do the rest of the seasons. I can't just stop. And so I created the four women to represent all the seasons. After that, I was like, okay, well, what else can I do? I was just making the seashell flowers, but I wanted to figure out how can I expand upon it. I enjoyed making just the seashell flowers to create their hair, but I wanted to go beyond that. How do I take this medium that I'm working with and expand it to a point to have diversity? And then that's when I started coming up with ideas, and that's how that collection came together. Previous work that I would never show to anyone that I'd already done, work that all stemmed from that one piece, Tanishi, trying to create diversity amongst the pieces. Painting, or the mixed media piece that I like the most, or is my favorite, is Tanishi, just because of what she was created from. But I would say my favorite piece in the collection that's a statue is High Happiness. Sourcing for art supplies can be rather expensive. So if you can find free things that you can repurpose, it makes a huge difference. One thing that I really want to communicate is advocacy for mental health, mental illness. Since a lot of my art has created through those struggles and those tough times, I want other people to know that in chaos, you can find beauty. And that beauty can look different for different people, but whatever beauty is for you, like just know that in those tough moments, the sun will shine at some point, but you just have to hold strong. And there was a lot of times where I had a lot of self-doubt, and not thinking that the sun would come out for me. And that's why a lot of my pieces are about sunshine, about happiness, about, peace. That's why you see a lot of yellow displayed throughout the collection. Overall, like putting all of that together, it was a journey. Overall, like if you count my older pieces plus the newer pieces, it's over 20 years worth of work. Until everything was put up into the gallery, I had one narrative in my mind of what my collection meant. But once I saw it all, I was like, wow, I'm telling my own story through my pieces, and didn't realize. I know one theme that I would like to explore is the Black collegiate experience, but through the lens of Divine Nine organizations, which are the Black male and female fraternities and sororities. And so I want to do something, but I want to use the same medium that I use to create the women, but also now incorporating the men for the fraternities, but then also doing the females for the sororities. So since the Flowers and Pearls exhibit ended on the 15th, I am going to move pieces of that collection to Randall Library and going to show it in the Sherman Hayes Gallery. But I'm going to tell the original narrative that I had using Randall Library's resources. And the original narrative was the Black experience in Wrightsville Beach, Shell Island during Jim Crow era. When I was interviewing for my position at UNCW, they brought me to the Shell Island Resort. And so me being, I guess, a librarian, I do go down that rabbit hole of researching and like, oh, so I'm staying at the Shell Island, like what is the history of Shell Island, stuff like that. And so I found out before it was the Shell Island that it was today, there is a whole different history. Like Shell Island used to be, I think for 3 years, was a Black resort. And it was like the premier Black resort for people to come from all around. And then it mysteriously burnt down. And so I wanted to bring that story back. And but then also within that story, I wanted to talk about the strength, vitality, and versatility of Black hair. And that was using the flowers as hair to symbolize that, the beauty within Black hair. And so hopefully like mid-October, that should be up in Randall and available for view until the end of the semester. Art is very personal, but also it means it's a way that I can communicate. Sometimes for me, it's not always the easiest to communicate a thought or a feeling. And sometimes it's easier for me to communicate it through art. So I look at it as art is my second voice. And being able to use that voice has shown me that it makes a huge difference. It just gives me another means to communicate how I feel on the inside.